Deep dive on PR Genius.
The Learner. Welcome back. Looks like you've brought us something pretty extraordinary to dive into this time.
Oh, is it ever?
We're going deep into, get this, excerpts from Revelation X, the Bob Apocryphon, Bob Dobbs, Subgenius. Not exactly something you'd find on your average bookshelf, right?
Right.
This book, well, it claims to be this forbidden knowledge,
Yeah.
specifically kept hidden from, and I quote, the others. But for you, the learner, someone who's clearly on this quest for deeper understanding, this is something you've always apparently wanted, always deserved.
A birthright, almost.
Exactly. And the big promise, they offer something for nothing.
Now, that's a compelling hook, isn't it? Gets you thinking.
It really does. So what's our mission in this deep dive? We're going to try to unpack the core ideas, the genuinely surprising claims, and the, well, let's be honest, completely unique viewpoints that are crammed into these pages. And we'll do it in a way that aligns with your style, absorbing knowledge quickly but thoroughly. Those aha moments we all crave without feeling completely overwhelmed by, well, the sheer bizarreness of it all.
Because it does get pretty bizarre pretty quickly.
It really does. We'll be talking about things like the birth of true mutants, the whole concept of cosmic slack versus cosmic pain, even some self-referential advice on how to even approach reading this book. Buckle up, the learner, because this is going to be a wild ride.
You could say that again, just glancing through it, the range of ideas, the sheer volume of it, it's really remarkable.
Okay, let's start by trying to make some sense of this Bob figure and this whole subgenius belief system.
Okay, let's do it.
So, the book introduces us to the Church of the Subgenius.
And they call it a cynisac religion, which is fascinating wordplay right there.
Right, a blend of cynicism and religion. And it's specifically, they say, for strange people, mutants, even descended masters. Definitely not going for mass appeal, are they?
No, not at all. But that's deliberate. They're appealing to the outsider, the one who feels different, the strange, the mutant. It's creating this sense of belonging, a tribe for those who don't fit in elsewhere, all wrapped in a very deliberate layer of irreverence, I'd say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the book actually says it functions just like any other holy book worth a damn. You can supposedly find proof within it to justify anything, any point you want to make, even if those points totally contradict each other. They give examples like proving the Earth is only 4,000 days old, or that it was never even created, or supposed subgenius beliefs about women and Jesus. And given the tone, I'm guessing those aren't your typical Sunday school interpretations.
Yeah, pretty safe to say that, but that's the point they're making. By embracing these contradictions, by saying, yeah, you can argue anything from this, they preemptively deflect any criticism about inconsistencies. They're challenging the whole idea of a single absolute truth.
So then we come across this idea of slack. And this isn't your usual, taking it easy kind of slacking. This is presented as like the ultimate goal, the freedom to, I'm quoting here, lollygag and spend money senselessly, which in its own way kind of has a certain appeal, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very tangible definition of what they see as the good life, cuts through all the usual spiritual mumbo-jumbo and gets right to, personal enjoyment, freedom from obligation. Pretty subversive when you think about it.
It is. And Bob, he's presented as the pathway to this slack. The book claims he can help you amplify pleasure and turn down the volume on pain, even if this path is considered demonic by others. They even acknowledge there might be multiple true lords, so it's not a strictly monotheistic setup here.
No, not at all. Embracing the demonic, accepting multiple deities, it all reinforces their outsider status. Rejecting traditional morality and playing with, though some might say disrespecting, spiritual beliefs.
And then it takes a turn, a big one. The book launches into this pretty harsh critique of normals. They're a vast conspiracy working against subgenie, smug newtsies and pullbuckers with their pro-social and fascio-humanist wimp training. I mean, those are fighting words.
Absolutely. And it's a classic tactic, honestly. Create a pervasive enemy, a them, that explains all the world's problems. Solidarity through shared opposition.
Right. Demonizing the normal to solidify the identity of the subgenius. And they don't hold back with the loaded terms, newtsies, fascio-humanist.
Not at all. Deliberately inflammatory. Building that sense of us versus them.
And it doesn't stop there. We hear about the device used by the elect, presumably the subgenie, against these normals as we get closer to X Day, which they call the big nose dive. It all sounds very apocalyptic.
Right, introducing a narrative of impending conflict, of urgency. This select group with a secret weapon to fight the normals. It's almost like a superhero origin story, but, well, with a very dark and satirical twist.
Then there's this thing called the 999 system, described as a smuggled knife to escape the straitjacket of normality. And Bob's mission, to smite a whole list of undesirables. Mediocritons, souls, glorps, conformers, Barbies, and Kens. If you represent normality, you're on Bob's hit list.
That list, it's almost cartoonish, right? But it highlights this deep rejection of mainstream culture. They're not just saying, we have different tastes. They're saying, you're an obstacle to our way of life.
Yeah, but there's a payoff, right? Bob offers freedom from, quoting again, smarmy, mealy-mouthed, neurotic puritanism. And the big joke, the end of normal reality is the punchline, and everyone else is, well, the butt of it.
Right. Freedom from puritanism links directly back to that pursuit of slack. Breaking free from constraints, embracing those desires that society usually frowns upon. And that idea of reality as a joke, it suggests a deep skepticism toward everything we take for granted.
Okay, then there's bull data. Turning bad input into bad output, somehow transcending logic through Bob. It's like glorifying nonsense, isn't it?
It is, and intentionally so.
Yeah.
Bull data is the fuel of their irreverence. Embrace the illogical, reject rational thought as the only valid path. It's a way to break free from expected patterns, almost.
Right. It's like saying the rules don't apply to us. And to top it off, the church is openly, deliberately confusing, even stating that most people can't be saved. Talk about exclusivity.
Right. It's that idea of an in-group, the chosen few. And that confusion, that could be a way to filter out the unworthy, the ones who just don't get it. Or maybe it's about creating a sense of mystery, a deeper meaning for those who stick around.
So we've got a basic understanding of Bob and this anti-normal stance. Now, how about we unpack some of their key concepts, their practices?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Okay, slack abuse. Apparently, that's the fault of the system, of normality itself. And the solution. You might have to go crazy to stay sane. Talk about a critique of conformity.
Right, a provocative statement about the cost of fitting in, of following the rules. That idea that rejecting norms might be the only way to protect yourself, that's something you see in a lot of countercultural movements.
Then there are these things called the finals. This stark choice between finally experiencing slack or, wait for it, being forced to stalk, kill, eat. Things just took a dark turn there.
Right, a pretty extreme dichotomy, to say the least. Either you achieve their version of freedom, or you're trapped in this oppressive normal world.
It's like freedom or become a cannibal.
Yeah.
Not much middle ground there.
Nope. And those extreme stakes, they highlight how important this whole slack thing is to them.
So how do you get to this slack? Well, there's something called metapsychic immaculatory trance processing, and then a pilgrimage to Dobstown, which is apparently located in Malaysia. It sounds pretty out there, even for this group.
Right. But these rituals, these symbolic locations, they all add to the mythology. It's like an adventure, a promise of transformation for those who buy into it.
And there's even a substance, pills, given by Bob himself, supposedly. And it's like a magic elixir. It makes everything fall into place, puts you in control.
The ultimate life hack, right?
Right. Effortless mastery, just add pills. But then there's this disclaimer. Diseases and mental illnesses, they're just gags, part of the satirical, funny, fake church aspect, which, I don't know, feels a little insensitive, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring. Satire can be a powerful tool, but to dismiss real suffering like that, it raises some questions about how far their humor goes and how sensitive they are to those who aren't in on the joke.
Now, Bob himself, he's this being who operates purely by chance, by accident. Whatever happens is right for Bob. He doesn't think, he just knows and then promptly forgets. It's all very chaotic, very paradoxical.
It really fits that bull data philosophy, doesn't it? Accepting randomness, believing that even in chaos, their goals will be met somehow.
So how do you actually achieve this slack? Well, you have to attain no mind, become mentally helpless, and just let things happen in your favor. Surrender control, give up, and float on this slack. It's like spiritual surrender to the absurd.
You know, no mind, a kind of mental passivity, that's a theme in some Eastern traditions. But here it's twisted, repurposed to achieve this material, this personal slack, and rejecting intellect. That fits with their whole rejection of normal thinking.
So they demand wholehearted but sporadic worship of Bob, who's just the best in a whole revolving cast of messiahs. And then, get this, the final step. You have to free yourself from subgenius mind control. Kill Bob in your mind and start your own crazy religion. What a twist.
It's like they're saying, use us as a stepping stone, then move on. Create your own path.
And they make a big point of saying, slack is good, while other religions say it's bad. Their advice, serve yourself, and grab all the slack you can.
A very self-centered approach. A direct challenge to those religions that preach self-denial.
Okay, now let's try to understand Bob himself, his nature, his supposed powers. He's described using these really random analogies: a daisy air rifle, a BB, an eye patch, bull nettle and salve, a sock, a goat head sticker. I mean, what?
I think it's deliberate. They're trying to show that Bob is multifaceted, undefinable. It's like approaching him through these symbols, these representations, rather than trying to pin him down with a definition.
Then there's this concept of the Thesis quantum field, or PPQF, their version of the soul. But subgenie get a nentessence and a nental if on top of that. Pinks only get one soul. It's like they're spiritually superior.
Exactly. Different soul composition, extra spiritual components. It makes subgenie fundamentally different. And, from their point of view, better.
Bob is this super dense singularity of slack, bending space and time to get what he needs. He's got the luck plane following him around, and he's both the mouth and the anus of the universe.
Wow. That imagery, it's so over the top, so deliberately provocative.
Right. It takes Bob from like cult leader to this being of immense, almost absurd power and good and bad luck. It gets absorbed and then excreted by Bob, creating psychic shockwaves and all the false religions in the world. So are we blaming Bob for religious confusion?
It's their explanation for why there are so many different conflicting beliefs. Bob is at the center of it all, the unwitting catalyst for spiritual evolution, or maybe devolution.
And then there's this description of his face, an asymmetrical smile, showing both rows of teeth, asymmetrical hair echoing Atlantean magic, a broad, unlined brow. In these intense eyes, you're warned not to look at directly.
It's an unsettling picture. The asymmetry, the warning about his eyes, it creates this aura of mystery, maybe even danger around Bob. And the Atlantean magic connection, that adds this ancient, powerful vibe.
Okay, now we get into conspiracy theories. Big time. The subgenius worldview, it's all about this giant conspiracy controlling everything. A pretty classic theme, right?
Oh, yeah. Hidden forces, pulling the strings, manipulating events. That's a common way to explain things when you reject the mainstream narrative.
Right. It's like if things are bad, it can't just be random chance. It must be a deliberate plot.
Exactly. And for the subgenius, that plot is about suppressing slack, keeping people from achieving that true freedom they seek.
So even above this conspiracy, there are the elder gods, the great old ones. Beings beyond our reality, hungry for quantum information. They feed on this thing called the stench from human souls.
Yeah.
Like a cosmic horror movie.
It's Lovecraftian, right? It suggests that human suffering isn't just a byproduct of earthly events. It has a larger, darker purpose. We're food for these cosmic beings.
And Bob, he has a role in all this. Their version of Armageddon has him kneeling before G-Brogfriend, offering up the bleeding head skull goblet, which might just seal the fate of humanity.
It's Bob as a key player in this cosmic drama, right? This intermediary between us and these powerful, unknowable beings.
The future of Earth. It depends on whether Bob decides to turn it into some interdimensional Hellstuckies or a soul firm for the elder gods. Not great options.
Yeah, not at all. And that Hellstuckies comparison, it's funny in a dark way, but also pretty bleak. We're either trapped in this cosmic rest stop or our souls are harvested.
And then there's this warning about knowing things. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. And you might just spend your life wishing you could forget. A surprisingly poignant observation, considering everything else.
I think there's truth in that. Sometimes knowing too much can be a burden.
They even say slavery under Dobbs is preferable to freedom under any on-wide government. Talk about distrust of authority.
Right. They're rejecting all established systems, saying true liberation can only come from within their own framework, even if it means submitting to Bob.
So how does this conspiracy operate? Polluting our minds, taking away our rights, establishing a new world order. Sounds familiar.
Oh yeah, it echoes a lot of classic conspiracy theories, but it's always filtered through their lens of slack and their oppression by normality.
Television. That's a major tool of the conspiracy, they say. Integrating culture, destroying literacy, turning people into photon-dependent p-heads who only identify with products.
It's a critique of consumerism, of how media shapes our perceptions, our identities. And that term, photon-dependent p-heads, that's classic subgenius, right? Provocative and memorable.
Definitely. Then there's indoctriliberation. The conspiracy keeps everyone on a tight leash in the work world, only giving us this illusion of false slack on the weekends.
Right, like saying that weekend leisure, it's not real freedom. It's just a way to keep us productive, to make us think we're happy.
And they're actively trying to turn wild humans into manageable slaves. Institutionalization. Mind software, they say. Pretty dystopian.
It's a deep distrust of institutions and a belief that our individuality, our natural tendencies are being suppressed to maintain control.
Constant surveillance, loss of freedom, it's all part of the conspiracy's plan. It really taps into those anxieties we have about privacy, autonomy, especially in this digital age.
Absolutely. That theme of surveillance resonates in today's world. Government overreach, technology tracking our every move.
They talk about this culture dish of the universal beehive where anything cool gets absorbed and then like spat back out as this watered down, trivialized version. It's like they're lamenting the death of counterculture, how it always gets co-opted by the mainstream.
Yeah, it's that idea that mainstream culture takes what's subversive, what's new, and it sanitizes it, makes it safe, makes it profitable.
And it's all thanks to the devouring pinkness. That sounds pretty ominous.
The devouring kinkness, it's a metaphor, right? The blandness of conformity, swallowing up individuality.
Right. And the end result. Earth becomes a toxic toilet soul farm, controlled by aliens and their human puppets.
A bleak view of the future, for sure. A toxic wasteland controlled by these puppet masters feeding off our misery.
And forget positive thinking. They advocate for bitterly pessimistic realism. Not exactly what you hear on your average self-help podcast.
Nope. It's about seeing the world as it is, no sugarcoating. They believe that's the only way to survive, to find true slack.
Let's shift gears for a bit and look at Bob's history, some of the people he supposedly knew. There's this Dr. Philo Ulysses Drummond, an overman, who knew Bob before his immaculation. And that's an interesting word choice.
It is. And figures like Dr. Drummond, they add to the church's mythology, providing historical context, building a sense of tradition, and immaculation. Well, that definitely leaves things open to interpretation.
Right. Very mysterious. So we get all these colorful stories about Bob. He could give you the evil eye, literally cause misfortune. He had a successful insurance brokerage with a fire at an orphanage, convenient for everyone involved.
Very subgenius.
He patented novelty items, was a successful preacher, a survivalist, and had these mysterious lost years of wandering. Quite the resume.
He's like a trickster figure, operating outside the rules, succeeding through, let's say, unconventional means.
He achieved infinite action, or not thinking, then embraced asceticism for a bit, before going back to his goatish ways, like a cycle of self-denial and indulgence.
It suggests a philosophy that embraces extremes, maybe as a way to transcend those limitations.
And then there's his relationship with his wife, Connie, a very independent woman, apparently, with her own sphere of influence.
Right, suggesting that female power, in their world, is not tied to the usual norms of domesticity or fidelity. Connie holds her own, even with a husband like Bob.
We hear about the overman transformation.
Yeah.
How it had some glitches. Even achieving this elevated status has its downsides. And finally, there's the story of Bob's death and revival in San Francisco.
Can't have a messianic figure without a resurrection story, right? Even in a satirical religion.
Exactly. Even a cynical religion needs its miracles.
Okay, let's talk about Connie a little more and this subgenius take on feminism. Connie, she's described as having this charismatic power, almost like a chameleon. Maybe it's because of Bob's short attention span, but they supposedly have this deep connection, even if it's not, well, exclusive.
They're drawing parallels to figures like the Hindu goddess Shakti, even Jackie Kennedy Onassis, a pretty broad range of influential women.
It shows that their idea of female power isn't limited to one archetype. It encompasses many different qualities, both mythical and real world.
And supposedly, Bob needed to bring her down to his level to be complete. An interesting power dynamic there.
Right. It suggests that even Bob, he needs this feminine energy, this power to be whole.
And they believe in a matriarchal past, a time when women held more sway, which the Pink Boys didn't like one bit. A little revisionist history there.
It fits their critique of patriarchal norms, right? They're suggesting there was a time when things were different, when women were in charge, and they seem to think that wasn't so bad.
One of Connie's teachings: honesty is the best policy, but insanity is a better defense. Classic subgenius wisdom right there.
It really sums up their philosophy. Reject the norms, embrace the unconventional, even the insane.
And subgenius feminism. It's embracing female dominance and basically whatever gives a woman slack. A pretty straightforward, power-oriented view of equality.
It's about empowering women, not necessarily in the traditional sense, but in a way that aligns with their core values.
So what about subgenius identity? How do they see themselves? Pinks, they say, are scared of failing, of what others think. Subgeni are free to screw up, to actually learn from their mistakes.
Right, rejecting external validation, emphasizing individual experience, learning without that constant fear of judgment.
It's, they say, hideously ironic that the people who most appreciate slack are also the hardest workers.
It's a paradox, right? But maybe it's about having the freedom to choose your work, to work hard at things you value, and maybe that hard work is the path to even greater freedom, to even more slack down the line.
Pinks, they say, are slack-jawed with boredom, while subgeni are slack-jawed with fully sated lusts. They're more alive, more engaged with their desires.
Right, more in tune with those primal instincts, those appetites, less restrained by societal expectations.
Subgeni, they're patient, they're willing to wait for slack, believing that time literally stops for them in the meantime.
It's that unshakable faith in their eventual reward that sets them apart from the rest of us.
Normality, well, that's aberrant, unnatural, diseased, even evil, they say.
No mincing words there. They are completely rejecting mainstream values.
They go on to criticize humans for paying to be oppressed, for electing our own oppressors.
It's cynicism towards political systems, right? That idea that we're complicit in our own subjugation.
They even compare zoo animals to domesticated humans, asking which group is truly worse off. A question about the nature of freedom, of control.
Right. It challenges us to think about how freedom is defined, how control is exerted in both animal and human societies.
The little pink teacher is this symbol of enforced normality, the enemy of subgenius individuality. And they have to wear a disguise of the normal to subtly earn slack within the system.
Playing the game but not really buying into it, using the system's rules to achieve their own nonconformist goals.
Expressing just enough abnormality to seem honest, and then using that honesty to infiltrate the conspiracy. It's a Trojan horse strategy.
Subverting the system from within.
They even have this concept of the rich subgenius. Financial independence, it's part of achieving true slack.
The ideal state, right. Free from constraints, with the resources to enjoy that freedom to the fullest.
And how do you spot a subgenius? It takes one to know one, they say.
It's about that shared understanding, that unspoken bond that goes beyond outward appearances.
They like to work at things that interest them, and they were surprisingly productive. Not exactly the lazy stereotype.
No, not at all. It suggests that slack isn't about avoiding work altogether, it's about finding fulfillment in what you do.
Evil pink coworkers are apparently easily intimidated by simple honesty, a workplace tactic.
Interesting, right. They're saying that normals rely on manipulation, on dishonesty, so honesty can be a powerful weapon against them.
Some subgeni even find enlightenment through drug addiction. There's this general disappointment with humanity, and expertise in floor sleeping and tube mastery is a valued skill.
It paints a picture of a very diverse group, often marginalized, attracted to this unique philosophy.
They make a distinction between rewardians, who wait patiently for slack, and emergentiles, who thrive in chaos. Different approaches to the same goal.
Different paths to the same destination, right? Showing that there's not just one way to be a subgenius.
And most of these Yetinseni, these beings, they're still in hibernation. A major goal is to help them wake up, to realize their true nature, like a recruitment drive for this hidden species living among us.
It adds a layer of mystery, of intrigue, right? This idea of a hidden heritage and a call to action to awaken others to their true identity.
Okay, now how about some subgenius ancient history? It's pretty wild.
Oh yeah, get ready for this.
So the great dung beetle created man and woman, but then G. Brogfran introduced sex as the tree of knowledge, a very different kind of creation myth.
Right. It throws out the traditional religious narratives and focuses on, well, on pleasure, on the physical act of creation.
The elder gods, they interacted with early humans. And events like the fall from grace, the great flood, those are all lies, they say, based on real events, but twisted and only understandable through Dobbs and these forbidden sciences.
They take those established stories, those religious narratives, and they reinterpret them through their own lens, adding conspiracy theories, the supernatural.
Then there's this Dr. Vladimir Krankowski, expert in Yeti prehistory and ancient astronauts. We hear about fossilized space helmets and ray guns from the time of the dinosaurs.
It's a mix of of fringe science and, well, just plain absurdity.
They talk about ancient scrolls and artifacts from around the Black Sea, the Dead Sea, the Sargasso Sea, even the Bermuda Triangle, revealing this pre-flood world. Antiquity. Those locations are, of course, always at the center of these esoteric theories.
Places of mystery, right? Hidden knowledge just waiting to be uncovered.
A grid system built by the elder gods using geomagnetic vortices and ley lines. That's something you hear in New Age circles, too.
Right, tapping into those ideas about Earth's energy fields and how they can be manipulated by advanced beings.
Continental drift. Not tectonic plates, they say. It's solar winds.
A much simpler explanation, even if it's not exactly scientifically accurate.
And those names, Mutantis, Antiquum, they sound modern, right? Well, that's because modern terms come from these ancient sources, they say.
It's a way to legitimize their own terminology by suggesting it has this ancient lineage, reversing the usual flow of history.
The Yeti are this naturally psychic species from Mutantis. Humans were just a biological mistake.
Subgena are the true inheritors, superior beings in this view.
There was this ancient Uyghur empire called Mu, founded by Yeti descendants. They hunted the dinosaurs to extinction, then got wiped out themselves by JHVH1.
A very imaginative, very creative history they've constructed.
But here's the thing. They say these Uyghurs looked exactly like modern humans.
A bit confusing, right? Maybe it's a way to connect their ancient Yeti lineage to us, to bridge that gap.
The Yeti, they have heightened senses, greater abilities, and then there are these tree Yeti mates. They recognize each other across lifetimes through their DNA. This recognition happens through X, or its equivalent, and shared brain fields. A very direct way to find your soulmate.
It's primal, it's romantic, this idea that you're destined to find your mate, and that connection is undeniable, both physical and mental.
Okay, let's talk about the origin of suffering, the subgenius version. So, Yeti scientists were trying to engineer humans to enjoy sex and pair bond for survival, but they found that too much ease led to less soul anguish. And that anguish, well, the Zists needed it.
It's their explanation for hardship, for suffering. It's not random, it's deliberate, created to feed these otherworldly beings.
Pain was increased to fatten human souls for the Zists. Flat souls are useless to them, apparently. The cosmic economy of suffering, you could say.
A very disturbing rationale, right? Pain as a commodity, a way to feed these unseen entities.
And they messed with human desire, removing logic so we'd be eager to breed, but also prone to hardship. And the Yeti. They were disgusted by the thought of interbreeding with us, these shriveled, hideous, bald, stunted pink gnomes, except for one depraved albino Yeti.
It emphasizes that Yeti superiority, right? They see us as flawed, as ugly, not worthy of their pure bloodline.
So what's the point of anything, right? If all our achievements, our struggles are just fuel for these beings, a pretty bleak view of things.
A nihilistic question. Does anything we do really matter if it just serves to feed these cosmic parasites?
But Bob, he profits from these great mistakes and tries to guide people back to their Yeti heritage. He wants them to reawaken their divine monad and regain original slack, their version of the Holy Grail.
Bob as the Redeemer, the one who offers a way out of suffering, a path back to our true, non-human nature.
This original slack is accessed through perception, through tapping into it. It's our biological destiny to return to our Yeti roots, they say.
Yeah.
And the conspiracy. They're trying to stop this, suppressing our natural selves to take away slack. And they even suggest that making things taboo might actually make them more enjoyable.
A playful observation, right? The psychology of forbidden fruit.
Okay, let's look at religion and spirituality, subgenius style.
Yeah.
So they say the conspiracy is repressing love, but flooding us with false, distorted images of sex in the media.
Deep dive on PR Genius.